Welcome to the spaceship, everybody. This is Fantasy MLB on deck, and I'm your host as usual, Austin. And today we are going to be reviewing ESPN head-to-head categories. Now, very, very different than your traditional roto leagues, and also head-to-head points. The shit, and you can tell right away. Just as an example, Trey Turner is going to be always in your category leagues the number one overall pick because not only does he hit almost 30 home runs, but he's going to get 30 plus steals. And it's all about competing in categories, not necessarily head-to-head points. So what does that mean? So how are you going to break this up? And how I always go about doing this when I play fantasy baseball category leagues is you're going to have 5 separate batting categories. You're going to have 5 separate pitching categories. And you can look at this and divvy it up, but each one is worth the same. If your team hits 40 home runs and in 1 week and acquired 0 saves, your opponent hit no home runs and acquired 1 save. You guys finished up 1-1 as a push. Each stat is standalone and it's in its own hemisphere sort of thing. So this was a subscriber who asked to have his roster evaluated. So that's what we're going to do. And lucky enough, he did exactly, or she did exactly kind of the route that I go as well. So let's go through each player and starting out with the batters, and then we'll work over to the pitching slots. So what did he do well? He grabbed a catcher, not only a catcher, but the catcher. He's going to be Will Smith from the LA Dodgers is going to be the best catcher in all of baseball this year. And people already probably knew that. Like, oh, that's obvious, Austin. But what the difference is that this season with the universal DH, this plays huge. Not only was catcher super scarce in the past, but you had to go after JT Realmuto and almost exclusively him because he was the only catcher really of like a couple that the Phillies were forced to say, who are our top 3 batters? Doesn't matter what the position. If we need to win a game, who are the 3 guys that we want leading off in the 9th inning? And JT Realmuto is the second guy, probably behind Bryce Harper. The same situation here in regards to Will Smith. Is he surrounded by superstars? Absolutely. But the thing is with Will Smith is that on his off days, he's going to catch 3 games. And in the past, he sat 2 games in say in a week if they played 5 games. If they played 6 games in a week, he's usually playing 4. And he's sitting 2 behind Austin Barnes, who's a better defensive catcher. The Dodgers are still going to play Austin Barnes the same amount. The only difference is that on Will Smith's off day, he is going to still hit the 5-hole in a loaded top 3 offense that is the LA Dodgers. He's going to hit over 30 home runs. He's going to have 95 RBIs. He's a truck, and he's in his prime. He's super young. He's 25 years old. This is super duper solid pick. Because, again, he's going to get more at-bats than anyone in Major League Baseball. Probably the same amount if JT Realmuto is going to stay healthy. But, again, there's only like 5 catchers in the entire league that are going to afford DH at-bats when they're not behind the plate because they're that good offensively and they're that dependent upon by their team. So, Will Smith is going to contribute to the home run category big time, the RBI category, and the batting average category. And I consider batting average, anything above 260 is going to set you apart from your counterparts, the people that you share a league with. So this person who sent in their roster is in a 10-person league. They drafted 10th overall. These are his results. So Will Smith, he's going to be above average in the batting average category. And for a catcher, he's going to be elite in the RBI and the home run category because he's going to hit the 5-hole in the LA Dodgers lineup. Not a ton of runs. He would require, the AJ Pollocks, the Justin Turners, the Fill in freaking Cody Bellinger as a as a scrub who's won an MVP and is still like 27 years old behind him, which is for sure possible. So let's go down to Yuli Gurriel. Yuli Gurriel has been around forever. I think at this point he's 37 years old. He is marked red because he is a player that I do not think is going to benefit this individual. He obviously waited till the very last minute to get a first baseman, and this is kind of what you pay, as we talked about in the past videos. First space and third base is really, really skimpy, and if you don't get one in the beginning, you're kind of tough out of luck. So he's going to hit the 5 or the 6 hole, meaning that he's not going to get a lot of runs generated for him. You have to look at it as a batter perspective in categories. You have to look at the holistic approach, not just the individual player, because if we're looking to score runs, we have to depend on our teammates to get us in runs. We're in a head-to-head points league. I'm going to grab the best player available. But if there's a niche that this individual plays into, then someone who I wouldn't necessarily value as much in a points league becomes that much more valuable in a categories league. So look, Yuli Gurriel, he is going to, if he's healthy, and usually he's generally pretty healthy, he's going to have 500 at bats. He's going to maybe score 70 runs. He's going to hit under 20 home runs. He's going to have approximately 60 to 70 RBIs. He's not going to steal a base. If he steals a base, it's going to be due to some flaw. But his batting average every year, consistent, is going to be above 290. So I would consider Yuli Gurriel as elite in the batting average category, but given how the rest of your roster is divvied up, you're not going to have any problems having a better batting average than other people that you face. And therefore, I think that Yuli Gurriel should be cut. I don't think that he's trade worthy. Cut and grabbed for someone else who's probably more capable down the line, and we will get to that. Next, Jorge Polanco. What's great about Jorge Polanco is that he has got the second base and shortstop eligibility, so when you have injuries throughout the year, it's bound to happen. He is able to slot around a little better than most people. He is awesome. He's 30. He just turned 30 this year. This year, he's going to be the third hole in a Minnesota lineup that's better than it was last year. I don't think that Minnesota is going to do as well as they think they're going to do. I think they spent too much money, traded away too many assets going into a season without really a super established pitching staff. But they're going to score some runs. Jorge Polanco proved that he's back. He's off of his heel spur issue. He's going to hit 30 home runs again. That being said, being in the 3 hole, surrounded by a lot of really good prospects and even established players, I think that he's going to contribute at a very, very good level, just like he did last year in both runs, home runs, and RBIs. And I should have highlighted batting average, and I'll go ahead and do that now, because traditionally he's over 260, which is what I would consider, a plus when grading a player. Next is Trevor Story at the shortstop position. What's great about Trevor Story is that he is going to acquire a second base tag as well, similar to Jorge Polanco. They're going to both have second base and shortstop eligibility, which is great. And also Trevor Story is moving from a lineup in Colorado that's favorable from an air pressure perspective. Mother Nature you can't really grasp a hold of, in a lot of fashions in regards to replacing that production in Colorado. But he's moving to a significantly better offense in Boston. Trevor Story is so great because he's going to be hitting the 5 hole within a Boston Red Sox lineup that already has Rafael Devers, Xander Bogaerts, and now Trevor Story. And JD Martinez was the other name I was looking for. I really hope that this season they stop messing around with the 1 and the 2 hole. I hope that they just put someone super solid from a batting average perspective. Just put Xander Bogaerts up at the 1 hole and just have somebody who's competing for a batting title every single year at that 1 spot to give the next murderer's row of power guys behind him an opportunity to knock him in. I think they'd score more runs. They always like to put in Enrique Hernandez or a Kiki, whatever the hell, or an Alex Verdugo that's hits 280, doesn't hit any for power, whatever. Just he has a ton of support around him. Not as much support, I think, in his prime with Colorado and the Elements, but Trevor Story, I think, is one of the most underrated players in fantasy baseball this year from a points league perspective, and especially in a league that's for categories. He is going to be elite in every single category, and that's so hard to come by, especially as like, your 5th pick overall, 6th pick overall. So Trevor Story, I hope that he bats in the 4 hole and not the 5 hole, so he doesn't have to, rely on the Bobby Dalbecs of the world behind him to bat him in. But what's good is that even if he is relying on not as good batters behind him to get him around, he is so fast. He didn't get ran a whole lot last year in Colorado, but he always steals bases, steals a significant amount of bases, and that adds such a big value onto him, because if he's getting to second base, the possibility of getting in for that extra run, that extra point is huge. So, all 5 of those tools are great, and that's probably one of your most valuable players that you have on your roster. Rafael Devers, you can't go wrong with Rafael Devers. He's going to hit in the 3 hole. I'd almost like to see him hit in the 2 hole. But he's going to hit home runs. He's going to hit almost 40 home runs. His runs, his RBIs. He's going to be surrounded in front and in back by all-stars. He's not going to necessarily steal any bases, but his average is always 290 plus as well. So, and we also talked about third base being a super skimpy position this year. This is a guy that you want on your roster, and this is the least tradable player that you have on your roster as well. Once you realize that everyone else, there's really no third base depth this season, you're going to get trade requests that are probably crazy, looking for a Rafael Devers, and it's not for his production, it's for his eligibility. Third base is just not available. So do not trade Rafael Devers. You're probably your first pick overall, Mookie Betts. Mookie Betts was not himself last year. Somehow they got better. They brought back more offensive firepower, except I think that for your niche of wanting to score runs, steal bases, and keep a high batting average, he's still going to be really, really good. He's still going to be honestly like elite. I don't know if he's worth a top 10 pick, given that he's just gotten outfield eligibility now. If he gains a second base eligibility, I'd say that it was more worth the pick, but I appreciate that you at least stuck to your guns, staying with the runs, stolen bases, and batting average niches. Now, Mookie Betts, the thing with him is that I should have put him in yellow squares. He absolutely has the opportunity and ability to hit 30 plus home runs for 100 plus RBIs, just like he did in Boston. It's just like after last season, it was so scary to watch him play. He just seemed lost. That it's like some of these guys, they hit stunts and they don't grow anymore. They kind of fall off the face of the planet. And you can ask his teammate buddy Cody Bellinger what that's like. So Mookie Betts scares me a little bit. I hope that he gets a second base eligibility, but just the fact that he is still going to steal 20 bases is going to put you in a situation to guarantee going to win that category every week, and I think that gives you a significant advantage. So it would take a lot to pull Mookie Betts from you, but I would keep your ears open if trades come your way. Starling Marte, I love. Everyone underrates Starling Marte every single year. I used to do the same when he was a Pirate. I didn't really start going after him until he was an Arizona Diamondback, and at this point, I've either drafted him or I've traded for him every year. I think Starling Marte is going to be great, given that he's a little older. He still had 40 stolen bases last season with over a month to go in baseball. He didn't steal one base the rest of the season after he had a concussion to end this past season, and he had 40 stolen bases in baseball. That's nuts. Not going to hit a ton of home runs for you, but just given that the Mets lineup is supposed to be scary, they were horrible last season. They're usually horrible. They spent a bunch of money. I think that Starling Marte is above the contract, the growth spur, the growth delays, the growing pains. He doesn't have those as an established veteran. He's got a lot of talent behind him. I think if he kind of makes it easy for the guys behind him. If he gets on base, they just need an established leadoff hitter, and they're going to be great. I think Brandon Nemo is awesome as well, but we'll see how they divvy up at bats and where they place in the lineup. But Starling Marte is going to be elite in the runs, stolen bases, and batting average category. He's going to be above 290. Byron Buxton is your second player that fits every single category. Just stay on the field, Byron Buxton. Former number 1 overall pick by the Minnesota Twins, and he's still there. He is their project child, but when he is healthy, he is crazy. He hits the ball so hard. Last season, before he got hurt, while he was on roster, Byron Buxton averaged the most home runs per at bat in all of Major League Baseball. It's a little bit of a smaller sample size, but he still had 300 at bats. He absolutely fits the mold. He's gonna score a bunch of runs. He's going to hit 30 plus home runs. He's going to get a ton of RBIs. He's going to steal. He's going to lead the league in stolen bases if he can stay on the field. And his batting average is always really good. So Byron Buxton one of your most valuable players. He's super underrated. Do not give away Byron Buxton for anything but a crazy haul back, because again, you are focusing specifically on winning every single week: runs, stolen bases, batting average. And this is the way that your lineup is set up. Stick to your niche. All you have to do and really think about it is that there's 5 categories, 5 batting categories. You got to win 3 each week. Make sure in all regards, no matter what, that you win at very least 2. And then at that point, it's a toss-up, and it's going to come down to whoever's, just better built rosters will win this league. Michael Brantley is a trade piece. Michael Brantley is going to hit again between the 2 and the 5 hole of a really, really good Houston Astros team. It's crazy to say that team is somehow getting old in front of our eyes, but Michael Brantley, I mean, he's the standard for consistent, but also the standard for consistent in the way of we know exactly what to expect out of him. He's going to get barely 400 at bats. He's going to have some injury stints throughout the year. He's not going to be available. But he is going to hit the top of the lineup. He's going to hit 300 plus, not even 290 plus. He's going to hit 300 plus, but he's not going to hit 20 home runs. Being in those prime time batting positions, he hasn't eclipsed 80 RBIs, 80 runs in a couple of years. He's just not your guy. But what's great is that he carries a lot of weight with him in regards to value. People still see Michael Brantley and they think to themselves, wow, that's a quality guy at a low price. I absolutely would take him. Use Michael Brantley to your advantage, maybe addressing that first base category, and we'll get into that a little bit later. Next player, DJ LeMahieu. DJ LeMahieu is another player that I'm going to trade absolutely, and the biggest thing with DJ LeMahieu and why he's so valuable is that he has batting title. Within the last 2 years, he plays on the biggest market team in all of baseball, being the New York Yankees, at the leadoff spot, in front of a lineup that is overrated and also aging in front of our eyes. DJ LeMahieu, I love DJ LeMahieu. I've had him every single year since he's come over from Colorado in a New York Yankees uniform. But the fact is that DJ LeMahieu is going to start opening day, most likely, and be splitting time. He's going to be a super utility guy. Since they've made their trades this season for Josh Donaldson and Kinnear Falefa, the shortstop for Texas that came over, and then established Gleyber Torres, Anthony Rizzo, there's just not a space for DJ LeMahieu. Now, at the same time, I don't value Anthony Rizzo at all. I don't think that he's worth that money that they just spent for him. I don't know why they were trying to make it hard for DJ LeMahieu to find at bats, because he's like that DH spot is going to be filled all the time. But DJ is going to lose at bats. But in the eyes of fantasy baseball perspectives and what ESPN ranks, they don't see that and they don't report it. So you have this little tidbit information that's really, really important. Trade DJ LeMahieu. He's eligible at first base, second base, and third base. That's super duper valuable. You can trade him for people more up the line, not necessarily down. So really look at that as a valuable piece. Don't give it away for nothing, but trade DJ LeMahieu because he's not going to be in the lineup 7 days out of 7 days. And that's super important, especially like for how early you grabbed him. You can get a better value before people realize that he's not the player that he used to be or relied upon. So next pick, I think, is one of the most underrated players on your entire roster. And I think that ESPN dropped Marcell Ozuna down super far because of the domestic violence issue that didn't come to anything. Him and his wife, no one pressed charges. The neighbor said that they heard screaming. There was no police reports established. It's water under the bridge at this point. He's going to be starting in the lineup at the 5 hole in the best offense in baseball. I think Atlanta's going to score more runs than anyone in all of Major League Baseball, and he's going to be in the middle of it for hitting for 25 plus home runs at a 275 average. And I mean, really competing in every category. He was so bad last year that I'm hesitant to say he's got to get back to that home run number. But again, he's worth the space that you have him in. Great pick. Next player is Jonathan Schoop. Kind of gets overlooked because he plays in a Detroit market for a bad team, and everything kind of piles onto each other. I think he hit 287 this past season for just over 20 home runs, 87 RBIs, around 87 runs. Very, very consistent player. I think you're going to even rely on him more for RBIs and batting average this season, given that there's a lot of life coming in. Spencer Torkelson is coming in as a top 5 prospect at first base. Another top 5 prospect in the same year is going to come up in Riley Green. He's going to play right field most likely. Akil Baddoo is coming into his own. I love Akil Baddoo. There's going to be so much movement happening in front of Jonathan Schoop that I think he is undervalued, and I think that you got him for a very good value in that, that RBI searching for batting or batting average slot. And, if Javier Baez, can do anything, that Detroit offense is going to score runs. I think they're going to be a lot better than, they were they have been in the last 5 years, but that's not much of a bit of a Captain Obvious thing to say at this point. So on to the next player. Eddie Rosario was probably the most disappointing player and for his caliber in all of fantasy baseball last season. I don't know what happened. The switch he went to Cleveland. They weren't playing for anything. He ended up riding the pine and then got traded. And then all of a sudden became Eddie Rosario again back in Atlanta as they made the run. So he was the NLDS MVP. Looked like himself. I think he's a super quality pick still. He's 29, 30 years old. He's going to hit 20 plus home runs at that leadoff position that he's currently staked in. In the beginning of the year, he's going to be elite in that run category because he's got Ozzie Albies, Matt Olson, and the boys behind him. Ronald Acuna, and he's back, whatever, got it. But if Eddie Rosario can get back to his at least his batting average number from a 290 plus perspective, I think this is a really, really solid play. He shouldn't be ranked where he is, but I think you got him for a really good value. Also, if Ronald Acuna Jr. comes back and they place him back into the leadoff position, which I don't know why they do because he hits 40 home runs. He should be at their 3-hole. But if they take Eddie out of that first base position or that leadoff position, bring him back to the 5-hole or so, I think that he's still going to be super valuable. He's just going to shift towards that RBI slot. And really right now, I think that you're elite in runs. If he shifts to that RBI spot, that 5-hole, I think that worked out good for you, and we'll have to see if that happens because again, he's gonna steal some bases, a little less than 10. He's super fast, but again, Cleveland, though they stole the second most amount of bases in all of baseball last year, they just got on the base paths a lot. So it's just something to keep an eye on. But I think Eddie Rosario is going to be a really good value for you moving forward. Hopefully, he moves to the 5-hole, contributes to you for RBIs to get you over the top. Next, we go to pitching and Sandy Alcantara, who is the bomb.com for the Miami Marlins. The Swordfish are not going to win a lot of games this year, and it's not because they're not going to keep runs off the board. They're just not going to put any runs on the board. So what's great about Sandy Alcantara and why I always will defend Sandy Alcantara and why I always go for him is that he's an innings eater and that there's so many pitchers in Major League Baseball at this point, especially young guys, that are going to get to the 80 pitch mark and just get pulled, regardless of how they're doing. It could be 6 innings pitched, scoreless frames, and they just get yanked from the game because they're trying to hold people, trying to keep them healthy. The Marlins specifically, no matter the age of their pitcher, will throw them until they break. So Sandy at this point is established. He's going to get 180 plus innings pitched. And then if you look over here at his strikeout ability, I don't have anything filled there, but know that you want to be looking for pitchers who are always that have more strikeouts than innings pitched. But because Sandy throws so many innings, I would just consider Sandy to be a yellow to green level, meaning that you're happy with his production. His wins, he's going to be in the line for wins all the time. Though he plays in a really good division, Sandy's just so good. He's going to be into the 7th inning. It's always eclipsing, flirting with going into the 8th inning. If the Marlins can score any amount of runs when Sandy's on the mound, he's going to have every opportunity to get plenty of wins. I think he's a really, really solid pick, and he probably fell in the draft like he always does, sort of thing. His ERA is going to be low. His whip is going to be low. I think he's elite there. So Sandy Alcantara, big thumbs up. you have to stay in the game to be able to have an opportunity to get strikeouts and to get wins. So you have to get somebody that's going to eat innings, that's not going to get restricted. Like your next player, which is Lynn, who I think is, your best pitcher overall, because again, as long as he's healthy, he had one stint last year where he missed a little bit of time, but other than that, he's been super duper consistent. He's going to have 180 plus innings pitched, but also he's going to have more strikeouts than innings pitched. He's going to win a ton of games because he has all the run support. Chicago White Sox offense is a top 3 offense. Toronto, Chicago White Sox, Atlanta Braves, top 3 offenses in my perspective. Dodgers after that. But Chicago White Sox are going to score a ton of runs. Their pitching staff, starting pitching to bullpen, I think is the best in baseball. There's no blemishes. Kendall Graveman is going to be their seventh inning guy, if they even need him. Their setup guy, who was an all-star, one of the most dominant pitchers in all of baseball last season. So, leading up to it, Liam Hendricks or Craig Kimbrell. Craig Kimbrell can get out of here, but regardless, this pitching staff is incredible. Lynn, he's your main guy, he's your main stake. He's going to be elite in ERA and WHIP as well. Next is Nathan Eovaldi, and Nathan Eovaldi is going to get a lot more strikeouts than his innings pitched. I've always been kind of a Nathan Eovaldi, because though he gets a lot of strikeouts, that means he's throwing that many more pitches, and though he doesn't have an innings limit, he's 32 years old. He's always playing in the AL East and has run support, but is playing against the other huge markets in baseball, and not necessarily the Tampa Bay Rays. The Tampa Bay Rays even don't give up any runs, and they scored the second most amount of runs in all of baseball. These are the teams he's playing against. They're playoff teams every week. They're playing against the Toronto Blue Jays. They're playing against the Yankees. They're playing against the Tampa Bay Rays, who are the second best team in baseball last year, and they're playing against the Baltimore Orioles, who are just getting older by the year, but they were babies, fetuses last season. They're going to improve as well. So I think Nathan Eovaldi has every opportunity to earn some wins, but I don't think he's going to be as elite as either of your two last guys. And then his ERA at times with guys that really rely on their strikeout ability. Sometimes this means that they get knocked around. If they lose control, they start to walk a couple of guys. Their ERAs balloon. Nathan Eovaldi in the past has had 4+ ERAs before. This last season was his best year as a 31-year-old in that category. So I don't think he's established. I think this would be a really good player actually to flirt around and trade with for something that you need. If there's a team in your league, you always be viewing what people are doing. View the players around your league and figure out who is super deficient at what. And if there's someone that is specifically saying, I need strikeouts, Nathan Eovaldi says strikeouts. He doesn't necessarily say wins. He only had 11 wins last year, and he threw 180 pitches, or 180 innings pitched for a playoff team. Nathan Eovaldi, good for strikeouts and on wins. His ERA and his WHIP, not trustable. So in my head, Nathan Eovaldi is tradable, but let's take it there. And if anything, if you look at this and say ERA, what's elite, what's between, anything below 4. If it's a 3.99, I'm going to consider it working toward your average the right direction. Anything a 4+ you don't want on your roster. Don't trust it. Don't bring any 4+ on your roster. It's just not worth the time. Emmanuel clase. So this is the only Adam Wainwright. Adam Wainwright, I think, is going to be a super valuable guy for you. He's 40+ years old at this point. Adam Wainwright is going to throw 180 innings as long as he stays healthy. It's one of those guys too. If he throws 180 innings, he's going to throw only 150 strikeouts. But because he's just in the lineup at that ace position, turning over week by week at a horrible division this year, I think that he's going to be every bit of worth it. His ERAs were in the low 2s last year. His WHIP is always good as long as he's healthy. This guy's reinvented himself. He doesn't need to overpower anyone at this point. He just needs to be super controlled and find his spots. And he's going to throw over 100 pitches every inning. So I think this is really valuable because, again, to win in categories for pitching, you just have to be in the game. You can't get pulled early because of innings pitched. You just got to have guys that are established out there and putting themselves in the line for wins and also not incurring a lot of runs. So strikeouts really not that important in this league because again, you have to be on the mound in order to acquire it, like to incur a strikeout. So Adam Wainwright, super valuable for categories because again, he's going to have a ton of innings pitched. He plays against the Reds, the Pirates, the Cubs, the Brewers. The Brewers being the best other team in that conference chooses not to score runs too. They have the least scary offense I've ever seen in the history. And I'm over exaggerating, but they don't score runs either. So be confident in Adam Wainwright. Don't sell him for under value. No one's going to want to give you anything for him. Just keep him on your roster. Super valuable. Hold on to him. Emmanuel Clase had a 1-something ERA this past year. 1.23 ERA. Super valuable. It's just how many runs and how many games is he going to be able to come into a situation where the Indians are winning? I think their pitching staff's going to be really good starting pitching wise. But again, those runs are just hard to come by. They're not going to score a ton. Jose Ramirez is still going to do all that he can, but like I just don't think that Emmanuel Clase is going to have the opportunity to save 37 games like he's projected. So if there's a team that's super duper hurting for the save category, I think that the save category, honestly, if you just completely ditch it, that's kind of fine because if you can compete strongly, guarantee that you're going to win 3 of the 5 categories, then you can be confident with the rest. So I would either trade for another elite relief pitcher using DJ LeMahieu, Michael Brantley, Nathan Eovaldi, etc. for an elite relief pitcher, or there might even be some value still in free agency given that there's only 230 players that were drafted in your 10-team league. Next is Camillo doval. And Camillo doval, a super awesome prospect, but unproven, and they were a bullpen by committee this past season. He's expected to be the part-time closer. He's going to split reps with the Tyler Rogers and the other what's-his-nuts for who just throws fastballs for save opportunities for a good team. I don't know what the hell the Giants were last season, but if they can do anything close to what they did, they're going to have a ton of opportunities in a pitcher-friendly ballpark, but he's not going to be on the hill in the 9th inning. He is a drop. Find someone that's super valuable within free agency. It's chock full of anything that you need. You just have to know how to find it, and I'll help you out with that too. Kyle Gibson is going to probably be the 2nd or the 3rd guy in the rotation for a Phillies team who's going to hit a lot of home runs, but is generally kind of unathletic. So that means like not only is he not going to have as many runners able to stretch out bases to score runs for him, you have to think about it from a defensive perspective too. I think that he's going to hurt from an ERA perspective because he doesn't strike out a lot of guys. Balls are going to be in play, but his defense behind him just not very fast. So Kyle Gibson is a quality player, but at that spot, if someone plenty of innings pitched, no limits, he's going to be in the game, he's going to be fighting. This is a guy that's questionable. He's not going to get you strikeouts. I don't know if he's going to get you a lot of wins, honestly, either, because again, like that vision is pretty difficult, and I think that the offense is a little overrated. So I think the ZRA is going to be pretty good. I think his whip's going to be hurting only because, again, like those hits that are usually taken away from an elite defense is just not going to be there this year. They're bulky and they're slow. And next is Joe Ryan. I would love Joe Ryan if I was a Minnesota Twins fan. I think that he has a lot of potential. He's 25 years old. Of all the prospects that are coming in this year, he has the best control of all of them. He doesn't have the craziest stuff, but again, great control. So he's probably going to even out at about the same amount of strikeouts that he has innings pitched. That checks a box. So for strikeouts, wins is where, and everything else is kind of where it falters. He is going to be cut in the 4th inning sometimes. They're going to only allow him to throw around 120 innings last year. If anyone has any familiarity with Casey Mize this past season, one of the top pitching prospects for the Detroit Tigers, had a 3.7 ERA to finish the year. Casey Mize would be into the 4th inning, 50 innings pitched, no hits, and just get pulled from the game. I think this is going to be something very similar with Joe Ryan. If he's getting into the 5th inning and he's eligible to earn a win, great. And he might be able to, but he's going to be getting pulled with 80 pitches. You have to stay in the game to be able to acquire category stats. I love Joe Ryan from a player, but from a category fantasy baseball perspective, he's not worth your time. I think that I would trade him or switch him out with somebody that's actually in free agency. And that's where we'll go next. Lance McCullers. Framber Valdez and Jose Urquidy, I would be really surprised if any of them were available. But there's always a chance that someone between those three are available. Even the Christian Javier's of the world, they're starting pitching staff is loaded. At any point, if these guys are available, they're worth rostering just because what is Justin Verlander's health at this point? So keep an eye out. If you need a first baseman, Spencer Torkelson is the number, like one of the top 5 prospects in all of baseball. He had earned a 70 power rating, which is just about unheard of. There's only 2 guys, I think, in the entire class of prospects this season with the 70 power rating. So expect him to be a 30 home run guy in his career. Wilson Contreras at a catcher position and play every single day. He's going to bat every single day. You don't have to worry about Wilson Contreras ever missing a game. He's going to bat at the DH spot when he's not behind the plate. Dalton Varsho, I don't think he's the best player necessarily, but he has catcher eligibility and he steals bases. So for whatever reason, if you somehow need more stolen bases moving forward, he's supposed to be their starting center fielder to start the year and hit leadoff, maybe. But steal a bunch of bases for a team that runs. Ke'Bryan Hayes, I think that Ke'Bryan Hayes is super underrated in this position. He's going to be the leadoff guy for the Pirates. He's going to hit 270 plus for power. Best player in their organization they've had in a long time. And most importantly, plays a position that is super duper skimpy. I don't have to go through all of these guys, but these are guys that kind of fit your niche that might be available. So help me gosh, if big highlight Tanner Houck, if he's available, if he throws 150 innings, it doesn't matter. His strikeouts are going to be crazy. He's going to be playing for a good team that has a lot of run support. Like I said earlier, I think he has the opportunity to be the next Corbin Burns of last year. Next with Savali and Plesac. Savali and Plesac, though they don't have a lot of run support in Cleveland, Cleveland pitchers just seem to always have it figured out. And they do not have any innings pitch limits at 26 years old. So big upsides, guys that you depend on. Plesac was a little down last year, but look to depend on those guys. And then, down the line, next guy and the last guy I'll talk about on this list because I don't want this to be too long. Michael Kopech is the same level as Tanner Houck, but on an even better offense in a worse division. If Michael Kopech or Tanner Houck are available, you have to make room for them. I think they have the absolute highest ceiling of anybody ranked at their position in fantasy baseball. A ton of strikeouts. It's just how many innings are they going to be let on the field. If they get let loose, and I just told you, like if they're not on the field, it's not worth it. But given how many strikeouts they get in such a short period of time, they're absolutely worth the snag. You have to take them because they might switch that category and strikeouts from red to maybe. They're that good. And to finish out, I'm going to talk about your trade possibilities for players that are super underrated, specifically using DJ LeMahieu. I think the biggest helps are these 4 guys because they all steal bases, being Jazz Chisholm Jr., Bobby Witt Jr. are going to both steal a ton of bases, which are valuable. You don't necessarily need stolen bases, but from a pitcher perspective, Dylan Cease is ranked lower somehow. I think that Dylan Cease is going to again throw 50 more strikeouts than he had innings pitched less this past year without an innings restriction. I can't believe it. I think he's going to be a top 10 pitcher. If you can trade for Dylan Cease using DJ LeMahieu, absolutely do it. And then the next guys down the line are probably pretty explainable. Jake Cronenworth's going to hit the 3-hole while Fernando Tatis Jr. is hurt and is eligible at all the positions just about that DJ LeMahieu is. So that's my show. It was a bit of a long rundown, but that's how much time it really takes to go through this stuff, guys. Head-to-head categories are really, really interesting. Don't go into head-to-head categories with the same strategy that you do in points. They're vastly different. People are valued a lot differently, but you know what? If you put the time in and you prepare, you'll be ready for anything. So that's the show for today. Thank you so much for your time, and go Red